The extent of the injuries to Governor Connolly is a closely shrouded secret at the moment.
President Kennedy is dead, Gordon. This is official word.
The President is dead. The President, ladies and gentlemen, is dead at Parkland Hospital in Dallas.
Truth is stranger than fiction.
Battalion 1 to Manhattan.
Battalion 1.
We just had a plane crash into Level 4 of the World Trade Center, transmit a second alarm, and start relocating companies into the area. Engine 1 out of Manhattan.
Engine 1 out.
Engine 1 out, World Trade Center, 1060. Send every available ambulance, everything you got to World Trade Center now.
That for 1060 been transmitted for the World Trade Center. 1060 for the World Trade Center.
It is obvious today that America has defaulted on this promissory note.
Thousands of lives were suddenly ended by evil, despicable acts of terror.
When will you be satisfied?
America was targeted for attack because we're the brightest beacon for freedom and opportunity in the world.
Hazmat 1 stand by, Marine 6, go.
You have a second plane into the other tower of the Trade Center, major fire.
Crawford David, Marine 6 advising a second plane into the World Trade Center, okay?
Marine 6, that's the other tower.
That's the second tower.
Truth is stranger than fiction.
The functions of our government continue without interruption.
All right, you're live with Pete Wichert, and this is the Truth is Stranger Than Fiction, podcast 25, with a special guest, Wayne Madsen from WayneMadsenReport.com. Hi, Wayne. First off, I'd like to say it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Well, it's good to be with you.
Thank you very much. And just for everyone, a little background information on Wayne. He's an author, journalist, TV analyst, and in my eyes, a true hero, risking his life to basically better ours. He was one of the original whistleblowers on the NSA, and basically Edward Snowden before Edward Snowden. And pretty much, in my eyes, Wayne, you're a hero. So again, thank you for joining the program.
Well, thank you.
And with everything going on right now, I mean, honest to God, where do we begin, Wayne? I'd like to ask your take. What do you feel is most relevant right now with everything going on in the world that needs to be discussed?
Well, it's funny. I'm doing the program right now because all day long I've been actually going through some old video tapes, the old VHS tapes that I basically amassed from all these various shows that I did on NSA and what they were doing back in 1999, 2000. Actually, most of it before 9/11. And it's amazing that the old French saying, "The more things change, the more they stay the same." Back then, of course, we were just finding out about Robert Hansen spying for the Soviets and the Russians for a number of years, and he went to jail. And then there was this issue of NSA spying on just about everything there was to spy on back then. Here we are, all these years later, and I'm thinking, my God, looking at these old, videotapes, I'm thinking, what's changed? The only thing that's changed is the presidents, but here we are still talking about conflict with Russia. NSA still denying they spy on everybody, which they did back in 1999. Of course, the movie Enemy, the State came out and put them in pretty bad light, and they denied they were doing anything wrong then, just as they're denying after the Snowden revelations they're doing anything wrong now. The problem is nothing was done about these agencies back in 99 and 2000, so we should not kid ourselves that anything's going to be done about them today.
Yeah. And you're on record saying that they should just be abolished, that there's no way to fix it.
That has changed. My attitude on that has changed, certainly, since 99 and 2000. Back then, of course, they got caught, with their hand in the cookie jar spying on people they shouldn't have been spying on. But it was, we were getting the information sort of piecemeal. A few people were coming forward talking about it, but not to the degree, certainly, that Snowden gave us all these documents. I mean, talking about it is one thing. Providing the documents to show exactly what they were doing is something else. So even in those days, I had been out of the agency since the 80s. And certainly, although I talked to people there, I didn't have any, the security clearance that I had would not have allowed me to have access to the information at NSA. So a lot of this, on my part, was like, I think this is where they're going based on people that I talked to, but I had certainly no documentation, not certainly like what Snowden produced, to prove what we were saying. Now, so in those days, I was saying, look, everything was a worst-case scenario, and I was not willing to say we were there in 99 and 2000. So I was, in those days, I said, look, we need to curtail NSA, but certainly we don't need to abolish them, because anybody who unilaterally abolishes their signals intelligence capability, when most countries in the world have that capability, I said we would probably be doing ourselves a lot of harm in the long run. Yeah. Today, based on what we know from the documents produced and how extensive NSA surveillance is, I've changed. Now I think the only way you get rid of an agency like that is to get rid of them and start from scratch.
I agree.
Reforming them. That was the idea back in 99 and 2000, reforming. And then we had 9/11 come along, and all the talk about reforming NSA went out the window.
Exactly.
They got exactly what they wanted, and even more so.
Yeah, I agree. It's the corruption's reached a level beyond repair, especially when you got guys watching porn all day. You got the other people taking pictures from your webcams of pretty girls and sharing them. I mean, the level, just of minor things like that on top of the mass surveillance is appalling for a government agency,
Absolutely.
I agree. Yeah, so what made you actually initially speak up about government corruption to begin with?
Well, I mean, this wasn't something when I woke up one morning and I decided I was going to become some sort of, whistleblower and, go after all this secret government. It was sort of a gradual evolution. I served in the Navy in the early 80s. I was stationed at a command out on the West Coast, where the FBI came to me and asked me to help them with an investigation, along with what's now NCIS, Naval Criminal Investigative Service. In those days, it was just NIS, Naval Investigative Service. They asked me to investigate somebody on the base. Turns out the person I was supposed to investigate was my own commanding officer.
Oh, yeah, this was the sting operation on him.
And he was involved in child porn.
Yeah.
A big kingpin in it. And needless to say, the way the Navy is, and I was an 03 in those days, a lieutenant, and the way the Navy operates is, it didn't matter whether the commanding officer was a convicted axe murderer, and then he chopped 50 kids into small pieces. The Navy, which is, well over 200 years of tradition, unhindered by progress, is what I always even said back then. They look askance at somebody court-martialing or testifying at their CO's court-martial. So the retaliation, although the Navy would deny they retaliated, they definitely retaliated, and the duty stations that I got after that sort of proved. My last duty station was NSA in Fort Meade, but at that point in time, I had already pretty much decided to leave the Navy, and I gradually got involved in the issue of data privacy back when nobody really was concerned much about it. All this amassing of personal data by the government and private corporations, credit bureaus, phone companies, you name it.
Yeah, it started in
I saw that as a big issue.
1980s, right?
Yeah.
They wanted like all out or full like hearability, and the 90s was like more encryption, and then even before 9/11, they were demanding telephone companies to give up records and things like that.
Certainly. And then people say, well, we're going to encrypt our information to protect it from computer hackers. And NSA said, that's fine, but we want to have a key to break your encryption. And, many companies argued about that. They didn't think NSA was trustworthy enough to trust them with the keys. And now we know basically from the Snowden revelations, those companies were absolutely correct. Not that my interest was in protecting the bottom line of corporations. My interest was in protecting the bottom line of the Fourth Amendment and the First Amendment. And, the others that are impacted by a overall lack of privacy. But we did have this coalition that sort of came together. These major companies like AT&T and then Sprint and others supported us in saying, look, NSA is going too far and wanting the keys to everybody's encryption. So that's where things stood in the 90s. And I getting involved in the privacy issues as sort of an advocate, I then got very much involved in other human rights issues because, privacy could be argued as sort of a boutique issue. But when you talk about the, governments basically killing people, committing genocide, that brings government abuse to an entirely different level.
Exactly.
And so I found myself getting more and more involved in investigating those macro human rights issues, still having an interest, of course, in data privacy. But, my feeling at that point in time, and then 9/11 proved it, the greatest abuse of one's privacy is to take their life extrajudicially.
Yeah.
And certainly I guess I became much more radicalized as the years went on, especially after 9/11, when they basically took the Constitution and threw it out the window.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that with the name like the Patriot Act, that's what they like to do. They deceive you with the names. Never judge a book by its cover. Never judge a bill by its name.
Absolutely, and we know that very few members of Congress read that act. They voted for it, but never even read it. They didn't even know what the ramifications were of what they were doing. So, in that interim, the latter part of the 90s and early part of the 2000s, I found myself investigating the genocide in Rwanda and going on other trips overseas to investigate all kinds of nefarious individuals and dictators and governments, and so that brings us to the present time, and I'm still trying to blow the whistle on some of these nefarious individuals. Just last week, of course, this past week, President Obama played host to some 48 African heads of state. Most of these guys are some of the most brutal dictators in the world. People I investigated in the 90s, and they, of course, were given their red carpet rollout at the White House. So
figures.
I mean, it's and he's, Obama's not interested in the economic well-being of Africa. He's interested in what lies under the soil over there, the oil, the gold, the diamonds, the platinum, the columbite, tantalite that's used in, these small electronic devices. That's what he thinks.
Yep.
And he's interested in Wall Street's bottom line, certainly not the bottom line of people trying to prevent HIV, AIDS, or Ebola, or any of the other things that affect Africa on a daily basis.
Speaking actually on Obama, I know you've done extensive research on his background, probably more than anyone else. We're from Chicago here. There's been protests on the South Side. People are getting pissed off at his lack of care about the people here, but yet he's bringing 1,000 illegals to Chicago. And I just wanted to know, to your best ability, can you describe who he is, where he came from, and how he became president, I guess?
Well, basically, we knew less about Obama when he was sworn in as president than any previous president of the United States. I mean, to put it in perspective, Richard Nixon, who resigned 40 years ago today, we knew everything about Nixon. I mean, we knew the good, the bad, and the ugly. We knew almost how many lemon trees grew on the lemon farm that his father had in Yorba Linda, California. I mean, we knew who he dated in high school. We knew he was chaperoned on his dates. We just knew so much about Nixon. Most of it was too much information. Not just Nixon. We knew about Truman. We knew about Eisenhower, and FDR, and Jack Kennedy, and all his extramarital affairs,
Exactly.
And LBJ, and his bragging about his dimensions, so to speak. But Obama comes in, and it was like this. Everybody just said, it's the Immaculate Conception here. I mean, that this guy just appeared out of nowhere. And look, I put myself in the category too. I attended the inauguration when he became president in January of 2009, and it was nobody asked the questions during the campaign. But it wasn't long after he was inaugurated. I started looking at some things that just didn't add up. One of which is his employment after he graduated from Columbia in New York. He goes to work for Business International Corporation, which was a known CIA front. It was outed by the New York Times in 1977 as a CIA front.
Yeah.
But where was any of this information in the campaign? It wasn't there.
Yeah, he was hired by Henry Kissinger, right? Correct? Right.
Well, he was hired, actually. Business International Corporation didn't have any obvious Kissinger connections, but it did have connections to some other players. The president was Orville Freeman, who was an agriculture secretary under President Kennedy, was a real insider in the Democratic Party. But also, we don't know anything about what Obama took in the way of courses at Columbia, but it's assumed that he actually was part of the study program run by Zbigniew Brzezinski, who just left the Carter administration as national security advisor. So Obama did definitely had and now let's start looking at Indonesia and his mother and his grandparents. Their background, and it was pretty clear after a while.
Yeah, into Lebanon.
My God, this is the first covert CIA asset or agent or informant that ever became president of the United States. I don't put George H.W. Bush in that because he had been CIA director, and most people knew he had some role with the CIA when he was in Texas.
Yeah, he wasn't covering it up much at all.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. And the crazy thing is, like, how you did the research on his grandparents working in Lebanon and then leaving right before the conflict and then showing up in Seattle.
The furniture store.
A fake furniture store that never actually was built.
The whole resume of Stanley Armour Dunham looks like it was made out of whole cloth. This whole furniture store business.
So that's a cover.
I looked at some other individuals. It was very strange to find out that some others who had been in the furniture store business or the department store business had also had ties with the CIA, including Julia Child, who before she joined the OSS during World War II worked for a New York furniture store called Sloan, and one of the big players in the OSS and later the CIA during and after the war was the heir to this Clothier. His name was Clothier, the Strawbridge and Clothier department store in Philadelphia.
Wow.
So the idea of this furniture store and the
being up front,
you're talking import export warehousing. It kind of stands to reason why they use that. As a matter of fact, I know for a fact the CIA has used furniture stores in the D.C. area for a number of years. Recently, one went out of business. It had been there for so long in a place that there should not be a furniture store. I mean, in a day where we've got the Walmarts and the big box stores. Why is this furniture store located? And it's been there forever, and it finally went out of business. But the funny thing about that furniture store is you go in there, and I went in there one time, and there wasn't any customers, and where were the delivery trucks? And the upper floors there were no windows. They were all just kind of blocked off.
That's sketchy
but
sounding.
Anyway,
that's sketchy sounding. So who actually pulls the strings on Obama? You think Brzezinski, Emanuel? I mean, who do you think is Valerie Jarrett? I mean, who are the main players we should be watching behind the scenes?
Well, I mean, I think John Brennan is pretty much CIA director who was at the National Security Council, who developed the torture policy largely when he was at CIA under Bush and Cheney. Brennan is definitely somebody. Remember, it was Brennan when he retired from the CIA, who went to work for this company, was the head of the company called the Analysis Corporation. They had a contract for the State Department Passport Office, and of course, it was their people caught rifling through passport files of they said Hillary Clinton and John McCain and Obama. But I think it was basically Brennan was cleaning up the Obama passport files, and basically had to say, well, they were looking at everything, and so that didn't. And the same thing happened in 2000. Campaign with Clinton's passport record. This seems to be like a rite of passage now for presidential candidates. They go in and rifle through their passport records. But anyway, as far as so Brennan is definitely a character to be concerned with, especially since he's so indebted to Saudi Arabia. I mean, he's a real Saudophile, and with the rise of this ISIL group now in Iraq taking over large portions of northern Iraq and eastern Syria, I mean, we got a guy who apparently visited Mecca, which is only allowed for Burman Muslims or special guests of the King of Saudi Arabia.
Well, there you go.
I know there's a former FBI agent who's absolutely convinced. I don't know the guy, but I've heard and read it. He's absolutely convinced that Brennan is converted at some point in time to Islam, and I think it's also odd that Brennan, when he was sworn in as CIA director, he didn't take the oath on a Bible. He took it on a copy of the Constitution, which is nice. It's a nice gesture. But it does certainly feed the rumors that he may not have wanted a Bible there because it's considered it's blasphemous.
Yeah, exactly.
Valerie Jarrett's another one. The land scam artists out of Chicago try to make money off the brownfield in South Chicago and other places. You know, they try to get the Olympics that have gone to Rio. They try to get it for Chicago. Money was spent that Chicago couldn't afford.
Wasted.
And even Obama flew to Copenhagen in a last-minute effort to try to wrest it from Rio, and it failed. But Garrett certainly was going to make a lot of money off selling the brownfields. And the school board president, Scott, who was found with a bullet in his head floating in the Chicago River, he was an associate of Garrett. And he's not around to talk about it anymore. Rahm Emanuel, I mean, you don't get any any slimier than that.
Yeah, that's one thing I'd like you to elaborate on. Being in Chicago here, most people don't realize exactly how dangerous this man really is, and exactly what his family is all about, like his connections with Israeli intelligence and all that. Can you elaborate on that for us?
Yeah, well, he's definitely, I was told by people in the U.S. government that he was under surveillance for a number of years as a leading Mossad operative in not only the United States, North America, so probably Canada in that too. And also his father, Benjamin Emanuel, was a member of the Jewish terrorist group, the Irgun, and not only was participant in the bombing of the King David Hotel that killed a number of British nationals, Palestinians, and Palestinian Jews in 1946. But also, he specialized in bombing buses, especially buses carrying British forces. And many of these British policemen sent to Palestine in those years were not released from the draft after World War II. Here they go all through. Can you imagine going all through World War II, fighting the Germans, the Japanese, the Italians, and then you think you're going to go home, and boom! If your background was police work before the war, you got retained and sent to Palestine to help put down this rebellion by the Haganah, the Irgun, the Stern Gang, these Jewish terrorist groups. And so imagine Benjamin Emanuel, Rahm's father, bombing the buses of these troops, killing these guys who survived World War II, only to go to Palestine.
That's horrible.
To be killed by in a bus bombing by Emanuel's father.
I mean, that's the epitome of a scumbag to me. You're blowing up American heroes who've been through hell, made it, and then an act of terror out of nowhere ends their life. That's horrible.
Well, that's who we're talking about. And of course, you know, Emanuel's father came over here, and I found an obscure article in the Chicago Trib from, I think it was '68, where he was a pediatrician, and one of his patients called him and went in, started going into labor on a weekend, on a Saturday, and he basically said, well, you know, go to this hospital. And anyway, the nearest hospital didn't have a maternity. Couldn't handle this, and it was apparently a complicated pregnancy. And the woman wound up having to go further to another hospital, but the child died in childbirth in the car, looking for her, because, you know, I mean, talk about bad bedside manners.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, he couldn't have been bothered, and it was pretty clear in the article that it stated that Emanuel's father couldn't. And we all know what happened when Emanuel, when he became chief of staff in the Obama administration. Somebody asked the father about his son. I hear he's going to work as chief of staff in the White House. He says, well, of course he is. You don't think he's an Arab and he's going to be sweeping floors. See? I mean, so there's this nasty racism that seems to be a thread in that family. And you know, I can certainly understand why people in South Chicago, the African American community, would be so upset with not only Obama, but, you know, Obama sort of arranging for Rahm to become the mayor of Chicago.
Yeah, and he's like a celebrity. They have a CNN show for him. I mean, it's appalling.
No, I talked to some of the folks from South Side, and many of these guys were, go back to the whole, issue of, the Black Panthers and in the 60s and 70s, and many of them said, look, we knew Obama when he showed up, and we also knew what COINTELPRO was all about. And if anyone was a government agent, it was Barack Obama, or Barry, as he insisted to be called back then. They said, first of all, he was trying to act too cool, and we knew he wasn't from around here. And they said he tried too hard, and they knew he was putting on an act. And so they didn't trust him, and they still don't trust him.
No, there's been lots of protests out here. I'm proud of the people actually, sticking up for him. Yeah, and then going back to Emanuel, we got Emanuel who put in the, death panels in Obamacare.
Well, yeah, Ezekiel, and then you got Ari Emanuel, who's a super agent in Hollywood, he's no month in the country either. He's done some pretty nasty things. And I mean, look, people in Hollywood, agents are not well known for their proper manners anyway. But you can imagine if you got people in Hollywood complaining about Ari Emanuel, how bad this guy really is.
Yeah. Hollywood isn't the greatest place. They got their own demons, So if they're complaining about him, he's got to be real bad.
Well, that's right. So when you got Hollywood sites complaining about Ari, just think how bad this guy is.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine with that family lineage. And another couple things. This kind of ties in with the whole Ukraine situation. George Soros, that's another guy we talk about a lot on the show. I'd like to have your take on what he's doing in Ukraine right now, and do we have to look out for him? Because I have a list, like a top 10 list, and he just got in the top 10 list recently. How dangerous is George Soros?
Oh, Soros is way up there. I mean, he was on 60 Minutes. He was interviewed. He actually admitted that he and his father helped the Gestapo in Hungary toward the end of World War II identify Hungarian Jews. They were rounded up, shipped off the camps, and then, of course, he would help the Gestapo seize their property. And George Soros has been seizing other people's property ever since. I mean, this is the guy who basically bets on entire economies collapsing. So he will short national currencies. He did it on the rising economies of Southeast Asia in the early 90s. He destroyed the economies of Thailand and Malaysia and Singapore and Indonesia. He tried to short the British pound, and the British government has never forgiven him for that. I mean, some people in British intelligence would like to see, George Soros have an untimely accident because of that. But I mean, Soros is very powerful in Britain too, with Tony Blair and that whole fake progressive, fake socialist, fake labor. I mean, there's wherever you look, there's no more people that. I laugh when people say, "Oh, Obama is a socialist, secret socialist." Please find me a socialist somewhere. Most socialist parties, or labor parties, the Democratic Party, have all been bought out and co-opted by these major multinational corporations.
Exactly.
And certainly Soros is part of that operation.
Yeah.
He's a key player in that. And the whole austerity program that basically sees these assets that these countries took centuries to build up now being sold off for 10 cents to the dollar or the euro is just astounding. That these hyper capitalists are doing what they're doing, getting away with it.
And is he in control of these like neo-Nazi forces, like basically fighting in Ukraine against Russian separatists?
Oh, absolutely. The whole issue with people like Victoria Nuland, who we know her dirty mouth, her phone call was intercepted. She was handing out rolls or something to the protesters in Maidan Square. And yeah, but these neo-Nazis and these other parties have all germinated under the care of Soros, because Soros, yes, he spends some of his own money, most of it ill-gotten, but he also is a pass-through for U.S. money, through USAID, for the National Endowment for Democracy, for the two adjuncts of the two major U.S. political parties, the National Republican Institute and the National Democratic Institute. These are nothing more than ciphers to the CIA. And, you know, I mean, the mere fact that the Republican and Democratic Party have two agencies that help the CIA basically call other political parties and movements in other countries for agents of influence, I mean, is astounding. And you know, that should show anybody that we have a duopoly of power in the United States.
Exactly.
I mean, how come the Green Party doesn't get any money to help people overseas? I think they've largely been co-opted too. I mean, I think most political parties in this country have been co-opted.
You just got to look at election laws to see that. You know, when it comes to getting an independent on a ballot, you have to get sometimes double the amount of signatures, sometimes 10 times, depending on what state you're in, you know, just to get them on the ballot.
Yeah, I know. It's an incumbency. I always call that an incumbency protection racket.
Mm-hmm.
It's so hard. First of all, it's very hard for outsiders to get involved in the political process. And God help you if you're a third, fourth, or fifth party trying to do so. It's bad enough to try to get through the primary process with one of the two major parties.
Yeah, you'd be. I mean, we haven't had since Ross Perot.
Which brings up another interesting aspect of Obama, how almost everyone that he came up against all fell as a result of some late last-minute scandal. It's almost like somebody was running interference for him.
Like the Romney quote about the 50% of the people being
even back when he was running for the Senate from Illinois. I mean, you had Blair Hall who collapsed because information came out about his messy divorce. He was the Democrat from Chicago that everyone thought had the Senate nomination locked up, and then he collapsed. And then they said, "Well, Obama will never get rid of this guy. He'll be totally unsuccessful against this guy, Jack Ryan, who's had been married to this lady on Star Trek, Jerry Ryan." And then all of a sudden, it comes out his messy divorce comes out. All these, by the way, all these divorce records on Blair Hall and Ryan had been sealed, and somebody broke the judge's order, and when he sealed those records and produced them for the media. And it was the Chicago Trib, of course, where David Axelrod used to work, that surprisingly got a hold of these sealed divorce records, which basically was the end of the Blair Hall campaign and then later Jack Ryan's campaign.
Wow. Yeah, I don't trust actually either one of the news or Sun-Times or Tribune out here. I mean, they've been bought off. You know, we don't really have much of a news outlet out here as far as newspapers we could trust.
Oh, absolutely. When I was out there, I had the opportunity to stop by the Billy Goat Tavern, which had been the hangout for so many great investigative journalists and columnists. You know, Mike Royko and
really, I should go check it out one day. Go down there.
Irv Kupcinet and all. I mean, they all used to hang out there. But of course, it's nothing like it used to be because the Sun-Times, I think, largely moved out of the building where the Billy Goat Tavern was underneath it. So, but here was a great newspaper city, and the first casualty of any newspaper layoff is the investigative unit because that is not seen as affecting the bottom line. As a matter of fact, investigative units going after companies and potential advertisers can actually affect the bottom line. So they're usually the first ones to get at. And so there's nothing in the way of investigative reporters left in Chicago. I know there's a few independents like myself, and I say God bless them, and but I know what they're dealing with. Nothing. They don't have any money. I mean, they have no assets, and here they're trying to cover everything from public utility commission hearings. I mean, nobody no papers cover all these commission hearings. This is where the decisions are made. Board of Education meetings, City Council, Public Utility Commission, Zoning Commission. All this is where these used to be covered. Now today, nobody's covering these. There's some enterprising, what they call citizen journalists out there. Some of them are former journalists. Others are just sort of, playing their hand at it, trying to do this work. But it's very, very difficult when you don't have any income source to help you along with those investigations.
Yeah, and again, since we're talking on this, pretty much, I'm kind of concerned. When I was watching the World Cup game with my mother, I saw that Obama was on vacation. I said, he should be there talking to Chancellor Merkel, about everything that's going on. Sure enough, at the end of the game, I see Putin shaking her hand. Then when you were on InfoWars on July 15th, you said, that you brought that up, that he was behind the scenes making deals. Now, what is this increased, basically trust and relationship developing between Russia and Germany and the BRICS nations, and how is that going to affect us here domestically?
Well, U.S. relations with Latin America have not been this bad since Richard Nixon. I mean, Nixon, of course, was behind the overthrow of Allende and Chile and some other nasty coups.
But Germany, I guess, predominantly.
Germany is basically being hurt very bad with these sanctions. And these sanctions are largely being driven by people like Susan Rice and Samantha Power at the UN. These women who brought about the downfall of Gaddafi, tried to get rid of Assad. And thanks to them, we've got ISIL now running all over northern Iraq, killing Christians, Yazidis, Kurds, Turkmen, and Alawites in Syria, and Druze and Christians in Syria. So yeah, these two women who are novices, Susan Rice and Samantha Power, are proof that certain glass ceilings maybe they should be broken, but they shouldn't have been broken by them.
Yeah.
Of course, Samantha Power is not the first woman ambassador to UN, and certainly Susan Rice isn't the first woman national security advisor. The other Rice, Condoleezza Rice, had that job. But Obama should have thought really hard about trying to mirror the Bush administration by putting incompetence in those positions. Certainly, Condoleezza Rice was way out of her league. She was totally incompetent.
Yeah.
She did her PhD on the Czechoslovak Air Force, a country that doesn't exist any longer. And so, I mean, they are the ones who are pushing it. Victoria Nuland pushing this confrontation with Ukraine and backing the neo-Nazis, and her friend Yatsenyuk, the prime minister over there, who I report, based from several reports, it looks like he's a member of the Church of Scientology.
Oh, no. Those people
and
are crazy.
When I first reported that, of course, I was attacked viciously because, there's certain groups that do not like the light of day.
And that's
one
Scientology.
of them is the Scientology.
Yeah. I've heard rumors about
There's a few others out there, but they're particularly nasty.
They'll follow you with cameras openly.
Well, yeah. I once exposed a Mooney who was the head of the UN food program, and I got nothing but nasty phone calls and email messages from the Mooney.
Wow.
But I figure if I'm making Scientologists and Moonies mad, I must be doing something right.
Exactly.
When you. Not that I want to attract the attention of every wacko religion in the world, but these two in particular, in my opinion, aren't religions. They're money-making operations.
Scams.
They both have intelligence components.
Yeah.
The
complete scam.
But anyway, German farmers are now hurting. Trucks are being turned away at the Russian borders as Russia's put sanctions on fresh produce coming into Russia. And spinach has gone down in price in Germany, but that's great maybe for the consumers, But just think of the farmers taking a bath.
Yeah,
and it's
true.
not just that. That's just one item. I mean, just think of all the other consumer items.
The meat.
And so Russia joins the World Trade Organization. It's supposed to be this free trade thing. And what do they get out of it? Sanctions. I think the future is the BRICS. And so Merkel probably knows that Germany's future is with Russia, China, India, Brazil, South Africa, and other countries now getting ready to join BRICS. Argentina, Iran, and Pakistan, and others are getting ready to come in.
Well, they could see the collapse of the dollar, so they're thinking ahead for the best interest of their country, I guess, if you look at it like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the countries of Europe stick with the special relationship with the United States at their own peril because what they're tied to with this country is a huge anchor that's going to take them all down.
Mm-hmm. Well, we got about 15 minutes left with you, Wayne. Do you mind if I get into a couple fan questions?
No, not at all.
One of them, this is from Tyler, and he wants to know if you think that the elections that you were quoted earlier saying that the close elections is very suspicious. How do you feel about the upcoming presidential election in 2016? Do you believe that a Ted Cruz or Rand Paul could bring real change? And if not, is there anyone that actually could in 2016?
Well, I think Ted Cruz, we first of all, it's not clear that he's even eligible to run for president. He was born in Calgary to a Cuban green card, a Canadian resident of Canada, and an American mother. So you got a Cuban national and Canada involved. Now, these folks can't have it both ways. They can't argue about Obama's the citizenship and eligibility to be president, and then turn around and say, it's okay for Ted Cruz to be president.
That's true.
Obviously, there's going to have to be a case that goes before the Supreme Court just for them to determine what is actually meant by natural born. We almost went there with the presidency of Chester Arthur. Obviously not a president everybody remembers, but Chester Arthur was rumored to have been born in Canada of a British national father, an American mother. Well, it just never went to they didn't want to test the Constitution back then. It would have been a nasty affair. And we think that things are contentious now with Obama and questions being raised about him. It was 10 times worse back in the 1800s with guys like Chester Arthur.
Wow. Hard to imagine.
There was no modicum of, we might think that people acted like gentlemen in those days, and believe me, they did not. But they just didn't decide they didn't want to go there, and but I really think we need that determination. As far as elections are too close. There's too many close elections, not just in this country, but in other countries around the world. Statistically, it's almost impossible that you get these razor-thin elections.
Yeah.
I mean, they used to be the exception rather than the rule, and today these razor-thin elections seem to be the rule.
Yeah.
And it's just, and I think maybe it's because of computerized voting. If you can change the algorithm and the vote counting tabulation, you can come up with these.
You could switch
certainly there were
it
issues raised in 2004 with John Kerry in Ohio. That many people said
Mitt Romney and Ron Paul recently, too, where Romney owned the actual machines. Now, what kind of crap is that, You could have...
Of course,
Florida, set it yourself.
Florida in 2000.
And who collects these, Wayne? Do you have any idea who collects the voting machines?
Well, it's actually very localized, and herein is the problem. I mean, people want the elections to be local. They don't want the national because there's more room for shenanigans. But we know that in each electoral district, each voting precinct. They can actually bring in whatever machines they want, and then with them come, whatever software engineers that need to fix the machine. There's really no control, and we found this was happening in Ohio in 2004. It's absolutely ironclad that John Kerry won the state of Ohio in 2004. Yet the return showed that George W. Bush won.
So the election system is basically predetermined, and that's that.
Yeah, and the only way to stop this or reverse it is get rid of the computerized voting. Go to paper ballots, and you can scan them with OCR. At least there's a record.
Yep. You have a piece of paper to go back.
Make the electronic voting machines. Isn't it funny? Many of them make ATM machines like Diebold.
Mm-hmm.
You get a receipt when you go to the ATM machine.
But not when you vote.
You get one. you go to vote, you don't get one.
Exactly.
Why is that?
And that's why that's a red flag, and that's why I think exactly we should go back to the old style. That way you have proof of who you voted for and could do an accurate recount. It's that simple.
Yeah, and there's nothing to say. There's absolutely no reason we have to know the winners of the election. That's the media driving that. They want to know almost immediately who wins. No, take your time. Paper ballots, optical scan, character recognition, and if we got to wait 48 hours to determine who won the election, so be it.
Exactly.
And that will also get the nasty little Associated Press and these other, they have these voting news services, and it's all inside baseball on where these election results are reported and who reports them. Get them out of the mix too. I'm a member of the media, but I don't think we need to know, exit polls and all that other stuff. All that stuff needs to go out the window.
Exactly. I have two more fan questions. This is from Doc Locke, and he wanted to know if you were aware of any sort of movement. He recently stumbled upon documentation. He wasn't sure if it was accurate or fabricated, that there was a movement to actually bring Adolf Hitler. I don't know if he's confusing this with like the Smedley Butler and the fascist overkill.
No, I mean there have been reports. There's been one book written, I know, and I think somebody did a documentary also that stated that there's no conclusive evidence that Hitler died in the bunker in Berlin, and
the skull was actually a female.
The bone fragments turned out that the Russians had in Moscow the skull fragments turned out to be from a woman, not from a man.
Yeah.
So there were some FBI documents came out from the FBI agent who was in Buenos Aires after the war, stating that there were a lot of Nazis that had escaped. And we do know many of them did.
Yeah,
certainly Mengele escaped. Quite possibly Martin Bormann escaped.
Yeah.
Klaus Barbie escaped, and others. But that there were reports getting to the FBI agent in Buenos Aires that Hitler and Eva Braun had escaped. So I think these stories are based on these FBI telegrams that were sent from Buenos Aires up to Washington, D.C., and they all had J. Edgar Hoover's job on them.
Wow. So they're pretty
anyway, that's probably what it's in reference to, and I haven't had a chance to look into that. I eventually want to get down to Argentina, not for that reason. There's a whole lot of archives being released, archival material on the dirty wars, and I specifically want to try to link Henry Kissinger into actual murders down there, and I think that those documents exist in the Argentinian, Chilean, and
I pray to God you find
databases.
them. I pray to God you find them and hold that guy accountable. The last.
Yeah, he's not dead yet. He can still hang by a rope. As far as I'm concerned.
Me too. If anyone, I mean, Bush wasn't smart enough to mastermind. He writes in 2000, we need a Pearl Harbor event, and then all of a sudden this happens. Iraq is the crown jewel, oil at the cheapest price, then we have 9/11. He needs to be looked into. But the last fan question we had is, basically, knowing all you do and with all your international experience, do you think that there is basically a new world order with it's kind of like a fascist, where corporations have taken over the government, pretty much is what he's saying the new world order is? And do you believe that this exists and that they're trying to get rid of the United States and have a one world government?
Well, I don't know whether they're trying to get rid of the United States or they want everything to become like a super United States all around the world. Certainly, when you look at these Bilderberg meetings and the Davos group, and they're just two of many of these the conferences where they wall everybody off and the police are there in force, and nobody knows what goes on at these meetings. G8, G20. Well, G7 now that Russia's been expelled, and that of course was done so democratically. There was not even a vote taken to expel. I didn't see a roll call vote. All this stuff done in secret. My issue is, I think the problem is, what do you want to call it, New World Order or the powers that be or whatever? I mean,
exactly.
Is that these decisions are not made democratically. They're made by a few elites that, David Rockefeller, he's like 100 years old now. He's not going to be around much longer, and I'm not sure how much power they have anymore. The Rothschilds, what generation are they into now? But there's so many like them. Look at the new money. Look at the Zuckerbergs and the Bill Gates and the Warren Buffetts. Are these the new elites that are controlling the world? Definitely, they brag about the fact that they control
let's
things.
kill 10 teachers or 10
the Bohemian, they gather at the Bohemian Grove and all these other places.
Bow down to an owl of Walter what was his last name?
Walter Cronkite.
Yeah, and he's speaking out of the owl as they burn a child out like apogee. I mean, that's what our elites are doing, running the country. I mean, that's craziness.
Yeah, I mean, and they the one thing they don't like is disinfectant of sunlight, and that's why the job of legitimate media is press is so important. Not what passes for press on TV. I mean, that's just pathetic. How many of those people, by the way, are seen at Bilderberg? Many of them are. They go there, they go to Bohemian Grove, they're part of it. They're part of the industry. The Anderson Coopers and the Wolf Blitzers and the rest of the characters. They wouldn't know a valid news story if one snuck up and bit them on the behind.
Yeah, I agree. And if you don't mind taking a couple more questions from me, do you have the time?
Sure.
How do you feel about this whole Ebola situation, and why was the infected doctor taken to Atlanta when we have biocontainment facilities?
Well, I drew attention to this early on. First of all, I think Obama should have postponed the Africa summit. There's a 2 to 21 day incubation period for Ebola, and this is the most deadly form of the Zaire strain. And why have all these people coming over from some of them infected countries? All they said, well, it was only 3 countries then. Now it's up to 5 or 6 countries we know it's out of hand in West Africa. There's probably more. He should have done the right thing and postponed that summit, because it wasn't just the president coming, and they would have they and their families, some of these are dictators, you're not going to make them go through screening when they arrive in the United States. They're going to be very protective because of protocol of them and their families and immediate staff. So there were just too many avenues for this contagion to come into this country. As far as the doctors in Liberia, the doctor and the nurses, the biosecurity at Emory is very tight. And look, we have other cases where we bring people back with diseases just as bad. So I'm not so concerned about that.
Okay.
They know how to deal with those cases, and The ones that are the ones to worry about, though, are, there's now been cases reported in Ohio and in New York and in New Jersey and in Toronto. These hospitals may not have that kind of level of biosecurity as Emory does, and the chance of it spreading is that much greater. I think the administration was so off the mark on Ebola, and the CDC director, this guy Tom Frieden, who was saying, "Oh, it can't be transmitted casually," was absolutely wrong.
Mm-hmm.
In West Africa, they're saying one of the ways to avoid getting it is to wear long sleeve shirts, because if you touch somebody and they're sweating it, you can get it from their sweat. It's thought that the Liberian American doctor who died of it after he arrived in Lagos, Nigeria, from Liberia, he died of it, and he passed it on to a passenger that was trying to assist him off the airplane. Obviously, it could have been transmitted by the person's sweat. When I heard the head of the CDC, and we've heard this mumbo jumbo out of the CDC before on things like swine flu and SARS and other diseases. You just wonder who's running the show in that place. And it had some weird incidents take place at the CDC. They've had some strange cases. I think people being murdered and some child molestation cases. Some very strange things going on there. I think they should probably vet their people a little more carefully. And I mean, if we had people at the Veterans Administration in charge of health care who did what they did, my God, if we had the same kind of incompetence at the CDC, just think of what damage these people could cause.
Yeah. On this, I don't even want to think about that, But I got another question I had for you is, how do you feel about Edward Snowden? Obviously, I feel like he's a hero, and he justified everything you were talking about. But how do you feel about the release of the documents and how slow they're being released? And
I'm very upset with it.
It couldn't just be to protect his own skin, because
like Chinese torture, water torture. It's just a drip, drip, drip. Snowden, he provided the. It's one thing to say NSA was doing this. I think they're doing it. I believe they're doing it. Or somebody told me they're doing it. But it entirely doesn't matter when you have the documents that show how they're doing it, technically.
Yeah.
How they're doing it. And so far, he's provided that information. But what I don't like is what Greenwald and Bart Gellman at the Post and others have done in redacting some of this information and also withholding some of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that was Snowden's intentions. And I'm reading the tea leaves right out of Moscow. I think he's now regretting that he disclosed these documents to them, because let's say if Greenwald would tell a lot of the information just so he could make money on his book.
Oh yeah.
And he's going to make more money when it comes out in paperback. And,
exactly.
And now he's got a movie deal also in the works. So,
how much more?
Yeah, I mean, I said, I said a long time ago, I said Snowden should have released these documents to people like John Young, who runs Cryptome, who definitely has the server capacity to put all this stuff online. And I did, like the WikiLeaks thing. Things just been all put out. They're still discovering things in the WikiLeaks documents, right? So there's scoops there for everybody. It's not like somebody's going to be able to go in there and I know what's all in the Snowden documents. I know I'm going to have a big scoop. No, there's many scoops there. So like Greenwald and Gellman, these others thought, they're going to protect the documents so they can get their Pulitzer, which they, both got Pulitzer recognition.
Yeah.
Not that that's worth anything.
That's true.
I mean, but who lost out? Who lost out is the people, the regular people out there that really wanted to know how, in fact, NSA accomplishing this systematic violation of our Fifth Amendment rights.
Yeah, and then he backed off on all the bombshell supposed a ton of information he was going to release, just backed out of it, you know. So
Yeah, you know, the
sketchy.
word I got is he probably doesn't have. He said he was going to release information on identities of people who were being surveilled. Well, we got 5 Muslim Americans out of that. I mean, you know, there's also something called grandstanding, and I think there's been a lot of that going on.
Yeah, I agree.
And so, yeah, I would hope that Snowden still has copies of what he gave to these journalists, and that one day we'll just see you know, them all provided to somebody with server capacity
I
to
hope
make
so
them
too.
available online.
I hope so too. Well, yeah, I mean, I appreciate you coming on. I got one last question for you, and then I'll let you get on your way, because I know you're an extremely busy man, and I was just wondering what your biggest fear is about the future of this country. Is it the open borders? Is it the NSA? Is it the office? Is it like FEMA and all their powers? What is your biggest fear? What keeps you up
My
at
biggest
night?
fear is that the American public is not concentrating on the important issues. I think part of this has been the dumbing down through Fox News and these other, you know, MSNBC, CNN. I mean, the news people are getting today is nothing like it was even 10 years ago. Certainly not like it was 20 years ago.
Yep.
I would urge people to go on YouTube and just type in CBS News 1968, 69, NBC, whatever, ABC, and they will see that in 22 minutes of a half-hour news broadcast, because the rest was commercial, the 22 minutes was just straight news. People got more news in 22 minutes than they get in an entire 24-hour period today with these 24/7 cable news channels.
Which
I mean,
usually
after
repeat
all,
the same
MSNBC,
story.
what do they do on the weekend? They show guys locked up in prison. Some idiotic program that is only catering to the base.
And CNN has a Rahm
curiosity.
Emanuel show.
And the rest of them are just as bad. My fear is that we are becoming a less educated public about what's going on, not only in this country, but around the world. Like I said, the newspapers aren't covering these critical issues that take place locally, and people aren't concerned about what happens in their own towns and cities and counties, public utility commissions, zoning commissions, city council, boards of education. How are they expected to, you know, have an appreciation for what's going on in the state legislature and in the Congress? And that's my biggest fear. People are just being lulled into complacency that everything is fine, when everything is not fine.
Exactly. Via technology and entertainment and sports.
Entertainment, yeah. I mean, people are more concerned about, you know, Justin Bieber than in, you know, the fact that we just had a guy, a senator from Montana, is not running for re-election because he was caught plagiarizing his paper at the Army War College. I mean, the people need to know about the people that are representing them, and I mean, we've got a guy who's indicted, who's a sitting congressman from Staten Island, New York, who's running for re-election. I mean, where's the outrage here?
Yeah, like you said, it's just lack of awareness. Awareness. And yeah, we deal with that here in Chicago. I mean,
no, Rahm Emanuel. I mean, Rahm Emanuel is the perfect example.
Yeah.
I mean, I go to, when I was in Chicago, I failed to meet one person that said they voted for Rahm Emanuel. So who voted for the guy?
Not me.
I mean, I know he's popular in the suburbs, but they can't vote the city of Chicago.
Exactly.
So who voted for this guy?
I have no idea. I didn't even really see many Emanuel signs or anything.
No.
I mean, so that was one hint to me that the election was rigged. Is that
I know when he ran for Congress up in the Wrigley, his district around Wrigleyville, and the fifth district, with Bogojevich's whole district, by the way, that many people thought there's a lot of Assyrian Christians up there. These are people from northern Iraq. They're being massacred right now by ISIL.
Yeah.
Same people. Their relatives are being massacred in northern Iraq. But people thought Rahm Emanuel was one of them. They thought he was because many of those people have names like Emmanuel and biblical names, very ancient. And he thought he was one of them, and they had no idea he was Jewish, and he had been in the member of the Israeli Defense Force at one time. And he did nothing to kind of like educate him otherwise. Like, hey, if they think I'm Iraqi, fine, let him think that.
If he gets reelected, then we know it's rigged. Put it that way, because people out here finally are starting to get upset about, especially with this illegals coming in and with even President Obama. So I'd be extremely surprised if the elections are fair that he gets reelected.
There can't be that many dead people that would vote for him. For the cemetery.
Yeah, that's about the only way he'd get it. I think reelected is.
Well, I think even the dead would not want to vote for him back.
I agree. But thank you so much again, Wayne, for coming on. Real quick before you leave, do you have any future projects you're working on? Anything you like to tell your fans about?
Oh well, I'm always snooping around the archives for information about what NSA and CIA is up to. So I'll be continuing on that. But, it's like trying to find needles in a haystack. But I try to spend a lot of time working in the archival system. It's very difficult, but I always, when I get into the archives, I try to make the best of it and try to
you do a great
pull out
job.
the documents that are of interest.
You do a great job with that, I got to admit. And again, I'd like to thank you for coming on the show, and I'd like to personally invite you back on the show sometime in the near future. If you could do that.
Sure, good to be with you.
Thank you very much. And again, everyone go check out the WayneMadsenReport.com, and it's a subscription site. You got to pay for journalism this good. And
well, there's some free stuff too. The pithy comments certainly are free.
And I and I encourage everyone to support Wayne, because he's done a lot for this country. He's put his neck on the line, and basically has risked everything to give us information. So everybody needs to support him, and support everyone locally, and like slowly but surely let's get our country back. But again, thank you, Wayne, for coming on the show. I appreciate it, and we'll be in contact soon. I'll shoot you an email in a couple months or something.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, thanks for coming on, Wayne. Have a good one. Enjoy your weekend. All right, that was Wayne Madsen, and I honest to God, I was really nervous before the interview. I've been a big fan of him. I enjoy his work, especially breaking down the president's past and Rahm Emanuel, and just basically it was unbelievable to interview him. But we're going to go to a quick break right now, and this is we're going to play two videos. One titled Inside the Ukrainian Revolution with Wayne Madsen. It was when Wayne went to InfoWars with Alex Jones. And the second is called Wayne Madsen, the original whistleblower on the purge of speakers of dissent. So stick with us, and this is The Truth is Stranger Than Fiction, podcast 25 on August 9th. And I'd like to thank everyone, and we'll be right back.
Shifting gears into the geopolitical, and then I want to get back. First off, NSA. You're usually telling us days or weeks before. Like you said, get ready for them spying on the Vatican, and 3 days later it comes out, they're spying on the Vatican. So you've got your ear to the ground. What's the next shoes to drop with the NSA?
Look, we only have about 2% of the documents that Snowden is said to have retrieved from all those various NSA databases. I think what we're going to hear, if we are allowed to see these, and these are, let's face it, these are only being released in piecemeal fashion to many different media organizations. It's really hard to look at these in total. But wait till we start seeing some stuff about historical documents from the NSA on from 9/11, for example. I think we're gonna see that Cheney and the rest of that gang, Rumsfeld, lied, as we all said they did. But I think that's going to be backed up with some evidence from a system at NSA called Criticom, the Critic system. This is used to send critical messages about hijacked airplanes, for example. So
it's kind of like Nixon got hung and on his own petard whenever his own tapes burned him. That's right.
So if this stuff, I can't believe he doesn't have that stuff. I think he knew exactly what to go after. In addition, squeaky clean and egotistical giraffe and all this other stuff. I would think that the 9/11 stuff, and he's already said, Snowden's already said, that he's got this doomsday thing. If they go after him, the stuff's going to be released. I think that's probably what we're talking about. When it's released, I don't know. I just wish this stuff had just been released in full to somebody like John Young at Cryptome, who I would note is also now being attacked by that Naval War College.
Now, let's get John Young back on the show, guys, ASAP from Cryptome. By the way, if I was Snowden, I'd never come back. I mean, the globalists are never going to let him get away with what he's done. That's too big an example to other people to be a hero. They're going to try to, through back channels, claim he's a double operative or a Russian spy, all this complete crud. The Russians tried to get rid of him. The Russians know what the NSA is doing.
Yeah, last month, Alex, I reported on an attempt by the British Embassy in Moscow to try to rendition Snowden out of Moscow, and it failed because I went on Russian television, the Russian language television, not RT, Russia One News, and said, look, this is the plan. It involves the MI6 at the British Embassy. I named the MI6 head at the embassy as being in charge of this. They were going to try to use another American who worked at NSA in Moscow as a lure for Snowden. It failed, and then we heard about the attempts to maybe try to kill him. But Putin has already given him now permanent asylum. It was 1 year, but he's extended that permanently. I think he's best staying in Russia. I would certainly do it if I were in his shoes.
And by the way, now I guess they're giving him Russian security because of these threats that you broke. Just like you broke that they had tapped the undersea cables, said exactly which ones. You said the Germans had tapped the Mediterranean, that they were involved. Merkel then came out and claimed, oh, they're spying on me. But everything you said in The Guardian turned out to be true. But instead of saying, oh, you're right, they make fun of you on CNN and then basically deep six the article.
Well, and that's because it's not just the NSA that has this propaganda operation. Anybody who criticizes anything that Obama's involved with, so it was CNN and Daily Beast, which is the Daily Beast might as well be an Obama newsletter. Why don't they just have him as the editor of it? He has some experience. He supposedly edited newsletters at Business International Corporation when he worked for the CIA. But Putin is now, because the Sochi Olympics start on February 7th. Look, Ukraine is to the west of Sochi, Georgia's to the right, and you've also got all those Muslim republics in the Caucasus. They are really, and then you got Prince Bandar following through with his threat to disrupt the Sochi Olympics.
Let's stop right there. This is the one thing I wish I had the money to do. I'd have like 2 analysts who sit in there and record and write down everything you say, and our other guests, and when it comes true, cover it. It was 3-4 months ago, you reported on the Russian news that Bandar had said that he was going to start activating Al-Qaeda ahead of the Olympics and during it to ruin the Winter Olympics. If they didn't back off in Syria, they've now gone ahead with that. I mean, it's just, tell us what's coming next then, because you've been breaking all this.
Well, I think the Russians are very concerned. So now they've allowed the U.S. to station law enforcement officials in Russia, in Sochi. You got the U.S. Navy that's going to be right off the coast. The Russians were concerned at first. Now they're more welcoming of that presence. But I would be very concerned if I were the Russians that this U.S. military and law enforcement presence isn't used to facilitate something in Sochi rather than prevent it. So I would be very concerned. Obviously,
the Russians are as smart as we are. So let me ask this. Why are they allowing those ships in? I mean, what's the point of that? Just, I guess, to just take the high road, or what's the point?
If anything happens, they can say, look, the blame goes around. It wasn't just our security that failed. Look at the U.S. had their people here as well. But
oh, I get it. They're hedging bets and spreading the blame.
Exactly, which you might expect them to do. But, you know, Sochi is such, you know, the whole attempt is with the boycott because of Russia's policies on gays and all this other thing. Now we've got the Soros topless trollops, the FEMA women protesting against Putin.
Yeah, let's talk about that. I don't want Russia to run Ukraine, and I don't want the EU, that's like a new Soviet empire, sucking them dry. Ukrainian for the Ukrainians. The Russians have backed off Ukraine. Now they've got Soros, when they voted a month ago not to join the EU, literally trying to burn that place down. He is a seditious little bastard since the days of him being a main collaborator with the Nazis, hunting down Jews. And if you point that out, which he admitted on CBS 60 Minutes, you're called anti-Semitic by the ADL.
Oh, that's right. I mean, Soros is what Soros is. He's a provocateur. He makes money. Remember, he has a hedge fund called the Quantum Fund. When there's any kind of disruption in places like Ukraine or Russia or anywhere else, he makes money on that. And he comes across as this progressive. He's not a progressive. He's the perfect villain for the next James Bond movie. As a matter of fact, he may have already been the villain in Quantum of Solace. I don't think it was a mistake that Quantum was the villain in the last couple of James Bond movies.
Right, and they're trying to shut off the water to quadruple the prices.
That's right.
Which is an actual scam he's run in Latin America over and over again.
And the whole idea of getting Ukraine in the EU is to get them to start accepting genetically modified foods from Monsanto. Ukraine is the breadbasket for Russia, and what better way to penetrate Russia? And China also buys wheat and soy from Ukraine. So what a better way to penetrate these two markets that right now ban genetically modified.
Well, here's the deal. If Ukrainians want to overthrow their government, that's their issue. But when it's a foreign orchestrated, those protesters are on record working for foundation groups. They're basically enemy soldiers.
Yeah, and you know, the street brochures handed out to the protesters in Maidan Square in Kiev are in Ukrainian, but they're the same leaflets that were handed out to those in Tahrir Square in Egypt, and we know how well that one turned out.
Yeah, trying to turn those countries over to Al-Qaeda. But look, none of that's going well for them. I would say Brzezinski's operation, right now, I'd give him a C-. It's almost an F.
Absolutely. I mean, Brzezinski is a well-known nationalist, Polish nationalist, who's always had a thing about bringing down Russia. And, you know, why people like him and Albright, who had a problem with the Slavic countries in the Balkans, Yugoslavia, why these people are allowed to be secretaries of state and national security advisors are beyond me. We can throw Henry Kissinger in the mix. They bring their baggage from their home countries. They might as well come over on one of those tramp steamers with all the baggage and luggage that they bring into our national office. And then they bring all that, and it affects our foreign policy in a very adverse way.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're a new listener, folks, we're not left or right here. It's about what's justice and the high ground, the moral high ground. We're builders, not destroyers. We want to build America, build the rest of the world, work together. Then if you double cross us, we crush you. But we're sick of being the bad guys, while the very same programs of deindustrialization that the West is using against other people are being used against us. These are anti-prosperity thugs running things. They're gangsters. And we're done with it, and they're trying to cause World War III with the Russians. Many anthropologists and archaeologists believe that before man even discovered the power to harness and use fire, we were involved in agrarian activities. That is, taking the seeds of plants and then replanting them to produce more. The very foundation of our modern civilization and human culture is centered around the planting and cultivation of edible plants.
Here are some of the amazing deals at InfoWars Seed Center at InfoWarsShop.com. The Survival Seed Vault by My Patriot Supply features only the finest survival heirloom seeds for a robust and hardy garden, even in the toughest times. We also have starter varieties of the deluxe seed packages for fruit, salad, salsa, peppers, medical herbs, and more. Go to the InfoWars Seed Center at InfoWarsShop.com. others.Throughout.com.
And remember, the revolution against tyranny is growing.
See the rest of the Alex Jones Show at our sister channel, The Info Warrior, or become a member of PrisonPlanet.tv and help us take the message of freedom and liberty to the next level. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe to this channel.
He did it back when they didn't arrest every whistleblower for exposing crime. Since then, I just marvel at everything he talks about coming true. I want to talk to Wayne Madsen first about The Purge. Dinesh D'Souza had movies coming out to try to unify America. He had another film they were going to work on later, I've been told by high-level sources, about Hillary. He's now been indicted on petty stuff, pled not guilty. The governor of Virginia could beat Hillary. He's been indicted. The Veritas Project, or Project Veritas, the governor's preparing basically to indict them with subpoenas. So they're going after everybody, and Bob Barr last week warned of this. I talked about it before it even happened. What do you know about the purge going on and this next phase of what Obama may try to do? Because he's openly behaving as a dictator now. I thought he'd leave office and just transfer dictatorial power to the executive the special interest wanted. Why would the system gamble and get this naked? Or are the Clintons doing a power move trying to actually take over? Wayne Madsen, what is your high-level inside intel telling you?
Well, the more things change, the more they stay the same, as the French always say. Look, the second term is always a pitfall for a lot of presidents. They get a little too cocky in their second term. They think they're, they can do anything they want. Look what happened to Richard Nixon. Look what happened to Ronald Reagan. Nixon with Watergate, Ronald Reagan with Iran-Contra. There's going to be an attempt now to create a long-lasting legacy for Obama. And, look, these second-term guys think that they're pretty invulnerable after all. We've got a lot of history to back that up. I noticed yesterday the Virginia Senate went to the Democrats by a 11-vote margin. You know, these close elections are rather, I think to see so many elections within a razor's edge, I just don't think that's statistically possible to see so many, not just in this country, but around the world. I think that they're still fixing these elections, so we've got that going on as well.
I agree with you that it's a power grab ahead of trying to get Hillary in. But there's something different. It's so rapacious, so aggressive. Do you think there's any chance they might stage domestic false flags and then try to keep Obama in office?
Well, it's funny you mention that. Look at the report today of what happened with Hamid Karzai. Our puppet in Afghanistan, but even sometimes puppets get a mind of their own. Hamid Karzai is now accusing the United States of staging false flag terrorist attacks that are being blamed on the Taliban to undermine his regime. So, we're told that false flags don't exist, that this is in the realm of conspiracy theories. Well, I guess if that's true, we've got a new conspiracy theorist in Hamid Karzai, somebody who was groomed by the United States intelligence services, placed in power, and been maintained in power all these many years by the United States at a very expensive cost in both blood and treasure.
If we describe this as a football game, how is it going for the different corrupt regimes? Because people are waking up more than ever, but at the same time, they are just dissolving the basic liberties, putting currency controls in, capital controls in. We see the clamps going on right now. Why do you think that's happening?
Well, I think these governments, look, the jet set just met again in Davos at their annual love-in, and of course, who was there this year? The new president of Iran, Rouhani. So it looks like Iran is now going to be brought into the fold.
Wayne Madsen, I want to ask you the question here. What do you call this total transformation and the NSA coming out of the closet and all their lies exposed, but they just double down and now, oh, we're going to watch you in your house for your own good? What is happening here, Wayne Madsen?
Well, it's a global panopticon where nobody will have any privacy. A panopticon is a structure, no matter where you are in that structure, you're going to be seen from a central location. So and we would have known none of the details of this capability had it not been for all the technical diagrams and PowerPoint slides and other documents released by Ed Snowden. The latest one is this operation called Squeaky Dolphin. I mean, they come up with some of the strangest names for these cover terms for these intelligence systems. You know, it makes people think of Flipper instead of Big Brother. But we've got that now evidence that NSA is spying 24/7 in real time on Flickr, on PhotoBucket, on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, and it goes on and on. So anything you do with the internet is now being surveilled by NSA. So all these NSA apologists out there, including this gang that you and I and the rest of every American taxpayer pays for, this gang up at the Naval War College in Newport, Rhode Island, two professors, and I'll name them, Tom Nichols and John Schindler, are constantly berating journalists for citing all this type of surveillance, illegal surveillance being conducted by NSA. They get away with it on our dime, and I have protested to the superintendent at the Naval War College. That guy, Admiral Carter, needs to have his star pulled. He's allowing this national security staff at the Naval War College in Newport, Rhode Island, to front for the NSA, and what
that's right. And of course, it's totally illegal to have the Pentagon operating domestically. But 3 months ago, they announced they're going to reach out to us with a PSYOP to alternative real media because we're actually threatening what they're doing. And it's just an incredible precedent, Wayne. When they get up on TV and Clapper goes, "We don't spy on any Americans," it's a total lie. He doesn't get in trouble for perjury to Congress, a felony. It's rapidly expanding, and it's all admitted what they do. The entire internet architecture has been built by DARPA and spec'd by DARPA for a system to predict the future, to the point of Amazon shipping your order before you order it.
That's right, and you know, I got a simple challenge for the Naval War College. They claim they're only doing this in the interest of academic freedom. Well, the Naval War College is the U.S. Navy. It's part of the U.S. Navy. It's not Penn State. It's not some private school somewhere, Harvard or Yale. If they're interested in academic freedom, let the superintendent of the Naval War College establish a group of offices for you and I up there, so we can counter every one of those pro-NSA professors and do it on their nickel, which is our nickel. So, you know, if he's interested in academic freedom, I put that challenge forward to him.
Well, I know this is stuck in your craw, what they're doing, but they're not having any effect. They're pathetic. So, I mean, I think they should just continue their treasonous activity openly so we can identify them. I mean, my issue is that, you know, let us have it, scum. I mean, we're here openly being proven right. We're rising. You're falling. You picked the wrong team. You've dishonored yourself. You've dishonored the country. You've dishonored your family. So, you know, go from us. Lick the hand that feeds you.
All right, you're back live.
Symbols are powerful.
Symbols are powerful. You're back live with Pete Wichert, and this is The Truth is Stranger Than Fiction, podcast 25. And I'd like to open up the phone lines for anyone on anything. And the number is 1-773-657-3341. That's 1-773-657-3341. So moving on to a more local story, we have Rahm Emanuel bringing, which we touched upon last week, bringing 1,000 illegals from the border here into Illinois. And Rahm Emanuel is inviting young illegal immigrants to apply for internships, volunteer positions, and even summer jobs. And we're going to explain why he wants them here, or I'm going to explain why he wants them here, and where they're going to go. And pretty much, Emanuel's office announced that the so-called dreamers are welcome to apply for nearly 23,000 positions. Emanuel says that the city should support talented young people who are committed to their educations, building their job skills, bettering their communities. And basically, he is saying that we have the right to take these children on. And he also has to train his city employees on how to deal with illegal immigrants and taking care of them. He has to find facilities to place them, which are military bases and basically what you would call FEMA camps. Okay? But in addition to the 500 city internships, he also has a plan for 22,000 summer jobs and training programs. And that came from the DM Daily. And so basically this article breaks down the fact that we're bringing thousands of people into a city that has the highest basically crime rate, which we're not even going into, the highest unemployment, some of the worst numbers per city, actually even worse than Detroit, and we're going to bring them here when there's so many people in Chicago homeless. We lead the nation in homelessness, but we're going to bring more people in and not bring the people from the streets of Chicago and take them and shelter and feed them and provide water and food and entertainment. And basically this is discrimination against people, American citizens. And I'm telling you right now that there's something bigger to this. There's something bigger to this. He wouldn't be spending all this money bringing these people here unless there was a goal. And the goal, again, is to have a civilian army just as big as just as big as the army. And again, in my eyes, there's something bigger to it. But Manuel was quoted as saying, "While we have our own challenges at home, we cannot turn our backs on the children that are fleeing dangerous conditions. We will do our part to ensure that these children are given access to services and treated fairly and humanely." Well, what about the homeless people across the city? Why do they not deserve a chance to be treated fairly, provided food and natural and what you need to live off of? Can anyone explain that? And the mayor also pointed out that these services will include free health care, legal services, food, education, and other social services, which will be paid by our tax dollars. Our tax dollars, okay? And that's ridiculous. And there's a few articles about this I'd like to go over, actually. One being, excuse me, this is by the Washington Times, where it's basically saying that there's going to be 1,000 more coming, but we don't know where they're going, but they're going to, basically they're going to have legal counsel and they're going to be taken to a secret facility. So take that in mind. There are constantly secret facilities there where they're going to be treated fairly and humanely. But the citizens in Chicago, one of America's most violent cities, have claimed that it's not claimed, it's fact, that the Obama administration is placing the right of illegal immigrants above those in need in Chicago. Mr. President, we're asking you, you're spending billions of dollars in Texas, but we've got a problem here in Chicago. Well, we'll not stand by this here and keep letting this senseless killing and shooting happen in our community, a woman on the south side of Chicago said on a protest on July 14th. You can read more of this at the Washington Times. There's another article by ONN on July 29th of 2014 titled Chicago Outraged by a Manual Invitation to Illegal Immigrants. And they go on to say what seems like a desperate election year stunt, a very unpopular Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel announced last week that he wanted the Department of Homeland Security to send at least 1,000 more illegal children to Chicago, where they will be housed, clothed, fed, and schooled and legally represented for free. Okay? The city is already carrying over 500 of these kids in secret facilities. Immediately, the common reaction among Chicago residents was disbelief and outrage. Basically, Chicago's own homeless would create a medium-sized U.S. city, all on their own. And we're bringing more people in. And Mayor Rahm Emanuel is either an idiot or this is a cruel joke. And that was the take on the streets by people that were asked. They said he is either an idiot or this is a cruel joke. So, Chicago, congratulations, you're waking up to the tyranny. There was quotes like, Chicago is doomed, R.I.P. There's nothing new. This is nothing new. He will wreck the city into submission, give billions to city contracts to his friends, then flee the city. And there's, from WGNTV.com, there's just hundreds of quotes you could pick out. But, you know, like, here's another one. Well, at least Chicago can afford a joke. Guess this is the liberal way of thinking. Broke is crap, but we still need more votes. You guys are so screwed up on your leadership. That's from Kevin. I mean, he's dead on. And basically, Chicagoans, since when does a kid classify as a 20-something-year-old with gang tattoos and head lice? I mean, so they allude to the diseases coming in, and the MS-13 connections. There are people here waking up, and they're pissed off, and I am happy. That is the best sign I've seen in 10 years here in Chicago. Thank you, citizens, for listening and stepping up and voicing your disapproval. And this is all on WGN Chicago. And Obama tells Emanuel not to worry about the cost. They know firsthand the city ignores its own homeless children, leaving them a handful of small private shelters and a lottery system where only a small percentage of homeless kids get a bed each night. The rest must survive on the streets, in the parks, under viaducts and subway platforms. Yet the illegal people came in this country illegally are being housed, fed, and legally represented for free. How hypocritical is that? So basically, on the WGN's website, 11 people opposed Emanuel's plan and 2 supported him. 1 didn't take sides when they looked. I'm sure this number is skyrocketed in disapproval. And when the Tribune asked who is paying for the housing and care of the children and how much it would cost, the Emanuel administration said they didn't know what the cost would be, but the federal government would be picking up the tab through the Department of Health and Human Services. The paper also discovered Chicago is already housing as many as 500 illegal children at 9 existing facilities. 9 existing facilities, almost matches the 9 FEMA camps. I believe there is 7 or 8 confirmed here in Illinois, and I can tell you where the rest are going to go in a little bit. So basically, illegals first, Americans second. And the City Hall officials disclosed to the publication that their efforts to house more than Central American children stem from a White House request to Mayor Emanuel earlier this month to find facilities in Chicago for at least 1,000 more. So the request came from Obama again. Another report detailed how the Emanuel administration has put out a call to Chicago's entire legal community seeking volunteer attorneys to represent the illegal immigrant children when they eventually stand for an immigration hearing, which most don't show up to. So you'll pay for the lawyer and then they won't show up on top of it. to see if they could stay indefinitely. That's a slap in the face to Chicago's own poor homeless children who must wait more than 15 years to get a volunteer attorney, if ever. I mean, that's a joke. There's a 15-year waiting period. Every Chicago child must go through, and there's only 20 legal aid charities in Cook County, and 10 are out of business. 5 stopped helping provide because they were too overwhelmed, and 5 help only women and minorities, which many of Chicago's homeless are not. Many are white veterans, many are males. I mean, many are. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. And Chicago, another article, Chicago already has detention facilities for nearly 500 illegal aliens. Again, it goes out to say that last week, Emanuel announced that he has housing facilities for illegals by 1,000 beds. He also says he wants to expand this. And where is this going to happen? Well, it's going to happen at a facility that literally was supposed to be shut down. Remember how there's reports that Barack Obama wanted to bring prisoners from Guantanamo Bay to Illinois, okay? And by doing this, he figured that he would close Guantanamo, transferring prisoners. Well, just prior to this immigration wave, Thompson Correctional Facility just decided to open up, and this is on 3/19/2014. After sitting empty for 4 years, the Thompson Correctional Center in Northwest Illinois finally has estimated reopening date, according to U.S. Senator Dick Durbin, Illinois, and Congresswoman Sherry Bustos, Democrat, Illinois. The Bureau of Prisons has dedicated nearly $54 million to renovate, reopen, and staff the 1,600-bed facility. So what this does is basically subjecting the American public, us as citizens, to get used to people being put into FEMA camps. They're being put into military bases with food and shelter, and this is to condition the public that, yeah, these FEMA camps are justified, because of this wave that we allowed happen by letting the borders be wide open. And military bases they're all in secret. Why would Emanuel want these people in Chicago? It makes no sense when we have so many problems. Unless they plan to roll out the FEMA camps, the civilian inmate labor program, and much more. And I have a clip from Alex Jones breaking it down. I'm going to play real quick right now. And you got that, Danny? And we're going to have his analysis as he joins The Truth is Stranger Than Fiction to break down what he feels about this story.
1,000 children fleeing violent Honduras, heading to violent Chicago. CNS News. Yeah. Rahm Emanuel says, come up here. We love you. Yeah, he loves taxpayer money in a city that's the crime capital of the world where nobody can have guns. They're fleeing one tyranny into another tyranny. That's the only place in the U.S. worse than Honduras, Nicaragua, El Salvador, or Guatemala. The only place they can go worse. Out of the fire into the frying pan, as they say. Rahm Emanuel wants to bring this country down. He says the city of big hearts will welcome 1,000 migrant children, selling the idea, come more, as the propaganda cover for all the gangs and criminals and mules and weapons and Pakistanis connected to terrorism and Iraqis, and it's all happening. Total joke while the government spies on citizens.
You are watching the best of the Alex Jones Show. Weekdays from...
Thank you, Alex, for giving us your insight, and he's dead on. I mean, we're sending these people to a city that is on the verge of becoming bankrupt like Detroit. The murder capital of the world, the homeless rate capital of the world. I mean, the numbers go on and on. And again, there has to be a point. So what the point is they're giving these people a place to stay now, which will eventually be used to put in political prisoners. People opposed the Obama regime and whoever the next president is will just be tossed in them instead. And there's plenty of executive orders that we'll go over later that justify. I'll go over them now that justify this. And when I asked Wayne what he fears the most, I fear FEMA because of the many different basically laws written. Okay, first FEMA camps in general. There's over 800 in Illinois. Okay. They're set up by the Federal Emergency Management Agency should martial law need to be implemented in the United States. Okay, it all started Rex 84 established on the reasoning that if a mass exodus of illegal aliens crossed the Mexican-U.S. border, they'd be quickly rounded up, detained in detention centers by FEMA. Rex 84 allowed many military bases to be closed down and turned into prisons. Doesn't that sound familiar, huh? Operation Cable Splicer and Garden Plot are also two sub-programs which will be implemented once Rex 84 program is initiated, which it really is right now. And the program is to control the population. Oh, what a surprise. Cable Splicer is the federal government. FEMA is the executive arm of the coming police state and thus will head up all operations. The presidential executive orders already listed on the Federal Register make it legal. So we're going to go through some of these. But first, look for these camps yourself because there's more and more popping up in there, especially if you're near a big city. And the proponents are the camps have railroad facilities as well as roads leading to and from the detention facilities. Many are near an airport. The majority of the camps could house at least 20,000 prisoners. The largest right now is in Fairbanks, Alaska, and it's a massive mental health facility which could hold 2 million people. They have barbed wire facing in to keep you in, and keep your eyes open because Rex 84, these things that were written years and years ago, and now it's coming true. Cloud and Piven, years and years ago. Now it's coming true. So we go Executive Order 10990 allows the government to take over all modes of transportation and control of highways and seaports. We have Executive Order 10995 allows the government to seize and control the communications media. Executive Order 10997 allows the government to take over all electrical, power, gas, petroleum, fuel, and minerals. Executive Order 10998 allows the government to seize all means of transportation, including personal cars, trucks, vehicles of any kind, and total control of all highways, seaports, and waterways. Executive Order 10999 allows the government to take over all food resources and farms. Executive Order 11,000 allows the government to mobilize civilians into work brigades under the government supervision, just like the civilian inmate labor program. Executive Order 11001 allows the government to take over all health, education, and welfare functions. Well, we're well on our way there. Executive Order 11002 designates the Postmaster General to operate a national registration of all persons. Executive Order 11003 allows the government to take over all airports and aircraft, including commercial aircraft. Interesting. Executive Order 11004 allows Housing and Finance Authority to relocate communities, build new housing with public funds designate areas to be abandoned and establish new locations for populations, similar to Galveston Bay, Texas, like we covered. Executive Order 11005 allows the government to take over railroads, inland waterways, and public storage areas. Executive Order 11051 specifies the responsibility of the Office of Emergency Planning or Office of Emergency Management, like I've been warning you guys, and gives authorization to put all executive orders in effect in times of increased international tensions and economic or financial crisis. Executive 11310 grants authority to the Department of Justice to enforce the plans set out in executive orders, to institute industrial support, to establish judicial legislative liaison, to control all aliens, to operate penal and correctional institutions like Thompson, and advise and assist the President. Executive Order 11049 assigns the emergency preparedness function to federal departments and agencies, consolidating 21 operative executive orders issued over a 15-year period. Executive Order 11921 allows the Federal Emergency Preparedness Agency to develop plans to establish control over merchandising of products, basically like the Bible says, over the distribution and selling, buying and selling of goods, and energy sources, wages, salaries, credit, and the flow of money in U.S. financial institutions in any undefined national emergency. It also provides that when a state emergency is declared by the President, Congress cannot review the action for 6 months. The Federal Emergency Management Agency has broad powers in every aspect of the nation. General Frank Selvito, Chief of FEMA's Civil Security Division, stated in 1983. FEMA's role as a new frontier in the protection of individual and governmental leaders from assassination and of civil and military installations from sabotage and or attack, as well as the prevention of dissident groups from gaining access to the U.S. opinion or a global audience in times of crisis. FEMA's powers were used to consolidated by President Carter. National Act of 1947 allows for strategic relocation of industry, services, government, and other essential economic activities and to rationalize the requirements for manpower, resources, productions, and facilities. That's basically a nice word for a concentration camp. 1950 Defense Product Act gives the President sweeping powers over all aspects of the economy. Act of August 29, 1916 authorizes the Secretary of the Army in time of war to take possession of any transportation system or transporting troops, materials, or any other purpose related to emergency. And finally, International Emergency Economic Powers Act enables the President to seize the property of a foreign country or national. These powers were transferred to FEMA in a sweeping. Basically, what this is saying is that the President had the ability to take land both domestically here in the United States and overseas, but now that power's gone to FEMA. So, in my eyes, FEMA needs to be watched. FEMA is the #1 threat. The NSA might spy on us, but FEMA's got plans to round us up and work us to death. Okay? So, in my eyes, FEMA needs to be dealt with as well. I'm not saying leave the NSA alone. We need to go after both, but FEMA, to me, is the more immediate risk. So, because basically, I believe this is the rollout of FEMA right in our face here in Chicago. Giving these people a place to stay will eventually be used on us, because this will not help the economy unless you're an illegal alien. As the article points out, they are getting jobs while the people that are legally here simply are not. And the city of Chicago will soon be even worse of a state of a city, and Illinois will be worse of a state than it already is. And why would illegals come here? Why would they come here, even like basically to come to military bases? Why would they come here to be caged up and sleep on the floor? Well, people, that's not what's happening. That's what the mainstream media is showing you. To be honest with you, they have direct TV, they got good food, they have water, and they have all sorts of things that we, the American citizens, can't even afford. They complain about food, they get better food. They have 36,000 orders of 6X underwear, people. I mean, this is getting ridiculous. Why can't we do that for our poor? Why can't we do that for our people in need? Who are we? We're not the world police. We're not the humanitarians of the world. We bring death and destruction. So this is Cloward and Piven. This is Rex 84. And moving on to another main point that we touched on with Wayne Madsen, and this is the spread of Ebola, and also why the city of Atlanta and Mayor Kasim Reed were at Bilderberg, and then coincidentally, the Ebola breakout, the doctor gets taken to Atlanta. Now, is this a coincidence? The risk of an Ebola outbreak worldwide is there. It's hard to contain. There's more countries each day asking for help. Especially it's been widespread in Africa. They haven't had a vaccination for it yet, which kind of makes me wonder if this is a natural thing. Usually they're ready to have, they had like the H1N1 ready to go. This is a major deal, or it could be another plan by the global elite. The contagious rate numbers went down from 95% to 75%, which is a good sign. But what I don't get is that I don't understand why they took this doctor to a regular hospital, because we have biocontainment facilities which exist underground with mines, with snipers' nests that could be set on fire and blown up in a matter of seconds if something were to escape. Why send them to a regular hospital where you're exposing a bunch of innocent people to Ebola for no reason, when we have these facilities that we paid for with taxpayers' dollars established? Why risk it and bring them to a regular hospital? That's what is really suspicious to me. And bringing the affected doctor to a regular hospital exposed a lot of innocent lives to this disease, which shouldn't have been in the first place. And that's the #1 tragedy of that. But why was the doctor brought to Atlanta? Why the city of Atlanta? Does Atlanta have the best hospitals? I don't think so. Who authorized this decision? Was it President Obama? Who has the power to do it? I think it was President Obama. Whoever did exposed many people and made the situation a lot worse. Proper precautions were not taken, and we must now be prepared for the worst. It's that simple. And does Mayor Kasim Reed and him going to the Bilderberg conference have any connection to or does it relate to this recent outbreak of Ebola? We reported when we got word of the Bilderberg list and wondered why the mayor of Atlanta would be considered a guest in the first place when he had no name, wasn't really going to be in 2016 a presidential runner, anything like that. Why was he invited? And then we had the doctor taken to Atlanta. Why in a regular hospital, not the biocontainment facility? Again, sketchy, sketchy, sketchy. Was Kasim Reed invited in the first place to the Bilderberg meeting because they had advanced awareness that they were going to bring Ebola into America through Atlanta? Could these two events correlate with one another? Could it be a coincidence? This would not be the first time a president ordered someone. This would be the first time a president ordered someone infected with the disease into the United States, and on top of it, into a regular hospital. Again, who has the power to make the decision if it wasn't the president? So if you want to say I'm blaming Obama too much, whose decision was it? I'd like to know. And President Obama or who else could have had the power to make the decision to send them to a biocontainment facility. And if they're not being used, why do they exist? Why are we paying for them? And all I have to say is to ponder this, viewers. Could this be the beginning of the epidemic that will, and is that why Qasim Reed was invited to Bilderberg, to give him the heads up and perhaps maybe deal with it, stop it, and then possibly become a presidential candidate? Or was he just given the heads up to protect his family because they're trying to start a mass pandemic? Now ponder that. Ponder that. So, like I said, then thankfully it turns out that it's not 95% contagious, it's 55%. So all we could do is hope and pray that the open borders and all the other risks that, you know, we live with on a daily basis do not come and become a bigger crisis. I mean, a crisis of such proportion that we haven't seen. I mean, we have so many more diseases than Ebola coming in through the border right now that who knows what's next. I mean, we have people dying of the plague in Colorado. People, the plague in Colorado, the Black Death, the plague from the 1600s and all. Yeah, we created it. Now we have people dying from it. So we gotta hope and pray that you know, this could be contained and it doesn't become a crisis. And all I could say is I hope this isn't part of their plan of population control, and that is why Qasim Reed is at the meeting, just to become aware of this future breakout. And also, I'd like to talk about ISIS real quick, and basically how Obama's been reported as actually raiding and doing raids, bombing raids on ISIS. Well, it turns out that the payload of the bombs aren't very much, and they didn't do many raids because, of course, we trained ISIS in Jordan and funded them. So we wouldn't want to wipe out a good investment now, would we? So Obama, yes, he did drop humanitarian supplies into Iraq, where it's predominantly Christians being massacred, but if we really wanted to take out ISIS, what he could have did was, like in the first Gulf War, bomb them when they were going up the road of death, that highway with one single road. But no, he waited, and then hits them when they're up in the mountains. This is staged. It was just a way to make it look like we're trying to protect them. But I'm going to let Gerald Celente break down pretty much his take on Israel, the war, and other pretty much current events. We're going to come back with the Truth Seeker social media questions and pretty much other news and wrap up the show. So hang with us. This is a very, very powerful about 15-minute speech by Gerald Celente, and I had to put it on. We're working on getting him to come on as a guest. So hopefully he does, but everyone, he's dead on with this, and pay attention to what he has to say, because what's going on in Israel right now has nothing to do with Judaism. This is The Truth is Stranger Than Fiction, and I'm Pete Wichert, and I'll be right back.
30 years of phenomenal trend forecasting. 5 times a week, Monday through Friday. Here's Gerald Celente with today's trends in the news.
Hi, this is Gerald Celente, August 5th, 2014. And here are some of today's trends in the news. I can't get it out of my mind. I can't get it out of my mind. What a great conference we had. And what a wonderful, wonderful group of people. I'm so humbled and so appreciative of all the people that came here and how great everyone was. And I want to thank you all that made it here. And it was a difficult trip for a lot of you, particularly the young guy that came from Japan, first time in the States. So I was very honored. So thank you again, and sign up before it's too late. We're limiting the crowd so that we can have a lot of interaction among us. And it worked perfectly this time. So the History Before It Happens conference, you will learn how I forecast trends firsthand. Tell you everything I know in that amount of time. So I'm not holding back anything, just so you know. On to the news. Well, the markets, they're down today. And it mixed around here and around there. And Earl's really taking a pounding. Motto, shoot, gold's down a bit. And one of the reasons the market's down here in the States is that the retail numbers aren't so good. Now, Target's down, all the retailers, Walmart, Costco, TJ Maxx, and these steakhouses, they're way off. Shoot. And here's what they're saying is that they didn't see a return of those people for dinner. Following that harsh winter weather, everyone expected it would pick up after that. It hasn't. And that's because people have no dough. End of story. And over there in China, growth in China's service sector slowed sharply in July to its lowest level in nearly 9 years. Wow. That's not too good, is it? Weakness was also seen in China's official service report, which showed activity slipped to a 6-month low. So there you go. The slowdown is happening. Profits decrease at HSBC as business in Asia slows. Yeah, it's slowing down everywhere. But the good news is the scam keeps going. Don't worry about slow-mo. Ponzi's still hanging around. Mortgage standards are easing. Fed fines. Nearly 1 in 4 U.S. banks said they had eased mortgage lending standards for borrowers during the second quarter, the largest such movement by lenders since the housing bust hit nearly 8 years ago. As well, the Federal Reserve quarterly survey of banks' senior loan officers showed that nearly half of large banks and foreign institutions believed lending standards for riskier syndicated loans to companies with non-investment grade or junk credit ratings were easier than the post-2005 norm. Great, man, and I love that term. Riskier syndicated loans from the syndicates, the mafia, the money mafia. That's all it is. Remember, 3 words describe America: Harvard, Princeton, Yale. Bullets, bombs, and banks. That's right. Those elites, those kids that were born on third base and thought they hit a triple, telling everybody what to do, all joining together to give you the royal screw. Aren't they wonderful? Yeah, don't forget, send your kid to Harvard. Yeah, you could become a top-notch Yale, Princetonian, Harvard crook. Really put your minds together. Really know how to run that banking system. Get into the State Department. Keep shoving it to the people as you don't do anything other than get fat and rich. Because your kids never go and you never pay any losses because them cops are too busy beating us up and you guys get a free ride. Keep screwing us. Hey, what happened to Dodd-Frank? Man, Cat must have got lost. Keep lowering those standards. Keep Ponzi alive. He's on his deathbed. But you'll keep pumping him up with that monetary morphine, man. You'll keep him alive. And speaking of more sick shit, them sanctions against Russia, they keep pumping them up. Germany blocks the delivery of military parts to Russia, increasing the economic pressure on Russia over its involvement in Ukraine. They overthrew the Yanukovych government. I remember they took Victoria Nuland and Pyatt, they made him say those words, and then they had Victoria Nuland in front of the Chevron sign saying how basically we spent $5 billion of our money planning the coup. Russians made them do it, man. It's right here. Yeah. And they have blocked delivery of parts for a high-tech military training center that was to be completed in Russia by the end of the year. A spokeswoman for the economics ministry said Monday. Huh. I wonder if they got a harf over there. Harf. Yeah, everybody uses a harf. And Iraq backs Kurdish fight against jihadists. And U.S. to give air support and arms to Iraqi Kurds. Got no money? Keep lowering them eligibility requirements to keep the Ponzi scheme going. Can't pay your bills? Got plenty of dough for them Iraqi Kurds to stop them jihadists. And look at all of these poor people that are fleeing from Sinjar Monday after Islamist State militants took control of their northern town. Great job, Cheney! Yeah! Good thing Saddam Hussein's gone. Where are you prostitutes? Where are you little pieces of crap calling out to slaughter? All brought to you by the madmen in the military. Another day of disgusting immorality. That's right. Kurdish newspaper Rudwaz, quoting a high-level American official, is saying that the United States has offered Kurds air support, and they're also going to offer them armaments as well. Great. And what else do we have here? Ah, yes. Another slaughter over there in Afghanistan. That's right. Number of people killed, including a U.S. general. Oh, and look at this. The U.S. general, he gets top headline. But these dead guys, they're just down here at the bottom of the New York Times. Gerard Goss, Lumber Bridge, North Carolina. They don't give his age. Donald Hamilton, 20 years old. Kenosha, Wisconsin. Benjamin Prang, 30. Hickman, Nebraska. Thomas Spitzer, 23. New Braunfels, Texas. Yashebo Villotacarusako, 23. Parma, Ohio. And Keith Williams, 19. Visalia, California. Yeah, they get buried down here, way down the bottom. Generals way up on top. Dead for nothing. Families' lives ruined. Souls gone. For a war of immorality. And that war of immorality continues over there in Gaza, a brief ceasefire. I'm going to read you something I found very disturbing. And it's all over the news. They've taken out full-page ads in the Wall Street Journal, New York Times. And you look at this picture, and what do they have? A Palestinian terrorist. Well, you don't know if he's Palestinian, but the garb makes it clear. Jews rejected child sacrifices 3,500 years ago. Now it's Hamas's turn. More than 3,000 years ago, Abraham had 2 children. One son had been sent into the wilderness and was in danger of dying. God saved him with water from a spring. Oh yeah, God had nothing else to do, so he gave him water from a spring. Today, he would have given him a bottle of maybe Perrier. The other son was bound, his throat about to be cut by his own father. But God stayed the knife. Both sons, Ishmael and Isaac, received promises that they would father great nations. With these narratives, monotheism in Western civilization began. And the Canaanites' practices of child sacrifice to Moloch are forever left behind by the descendants of Abraham. Except they are not. In my own lifetime, I have seen Jewish children thrown into the fire. And now I have seen Muslim children used as human shields. In both cases, by worshippers of death cults, indistinguishable from that of the Molochites. What we are suffering through today is not a battle of Jews versus Arab or Israelis versus Palestinians. Rather, it is a battle between those who celebrate life and those who champion death. It is a battle of civilization versus barbarism. This is by Elie Wiesel, a Nobel Peace Laureate. Another Nobel piece of shit. Right up there with Obama and Kissinger and all the rest. The Nobel Peace Prize is a joke. Take the word peace out of it. And this is a piece of crap. Yeah, once upon a time, save your Bible fairy tales for the other jerks that swallow your horse shit. Human shields, barbarism, yeah. Like those schools that you Israelis are blowing up kids with, huh? Yeah, all over the place. What is it? 7 this time? 2,000 Palestinians dead. Oh, you saw children get thrown into fires? Hey, drop a bomb on them, it's okay, but don't throw them into the fire. You know what's happening? Israel is becoming synonymous with Judaism, and slimers like him are doing it. Hey, that's like making the United States a Christian nation. Yeah, that has about as much to do with Christianity as the slaughter being committed by the Israelis has to do with Judaism. No connection, Jack. Oh, and let's just say that they're using them as human shields, which they are not. Look at these pictures. You slimers are bombing the hell out of every place. Thousands of homes destroyed. Thousands of people murdered. Thousands wounded by F-16s, by drones. You're bombing schools, hospitals, playgrounds. Has nothing to do with human shields. Weasel, Elie Wiesel. Nobel shit. How can they run this stuff? And most Americans, by the way, for the record, support the slaughter because they buy the horse shit from slime balls like him. But we're going to pretend they're human shields. Hey, and Wiesel knows they are. He says it right here. That's right. He says, I have seen Muslim children used as human shields. You've seen that, asshole? Okay, you've seen it. You've seen it, but you're going to kill them anyway, huh? Yeah. Yeah. You all say they're human shields, but you're going to bomb the shit out of them no matter what. Hey, throw them in an oven or blow them up. When you're dead, you're dead. The means don't matter. That's right. Hang them, lethal injection. You're dead. And you're a murderer. And you hide behind God and your false prophet to make your case. Because this has nothing to do with Judaism. Nothing. No more than Catholicism had to do with the Inquisition. Hypocrite. The murder that's going on and that's being tolerated is disgusting. And then, after they blow up your family, destroy everything that you have, and you're angry and you want to retaliate, little pieces of crap like him call it terrorism. Yeah, payback's a bitch. And this is why anti-Semitism is going to grow, because Israel is being associated with Judaism, and a few madmen are being associated with Judaism as well. They have nothing to do with each other. Murder is murder. And speaking of murder, here's a little more over here. A new report out by Amnesty International on Nigeria atrocities. That's right. You know those Islamists, those crazy Islamists, as everyone loves to call them. Boko Haram. Yeah, that's right. The footage shows, oh, wait a minute, Nigerian soldiers slitting the throats of Boko Haram. Gee, I got it backwards, because I'm supposed to salute all the soldiers. Hey, when an Israeli soldier gets killed in an occupied nation, it's big news. When Nigerians are fighting Boko Haram and Nigerian soldiers get killed, I'm sure they do the same thing. Those bad Bokos. And hey, like an American soldier, you know, you're in occupied land. Guess what? They're going to kill you because they want to get you out. Could anybody add that up? Like that shithead from the UN yesterday? I can't figure out why Israel keeps bombing all of these schools. I just don't understand. We gave them all the information over and over again, and they keep bombing them. Don't understand. You don't understand? Crazy, huh? Too much for you to comprehend. They're crazy bastards everywhere. Look at this video. And speaking about crazy bastards everywhere, the United States is sending the California National Guard to go help train those Ukrainian National Guards. That's right. The Obama administration officially informed Congress that it plans to train and equip the Ukrainian National Guard. And they're sending guys from California to do it. Isn't that nice? Got no money, but we could train them. We got more war in Iraq. Let's build it a lot bigger in Ukraine. Let's really blow the shit out of every place so that World War III could start. And then I don't have to go through this anymore or be worried about anything because, as Einstein said, I don't know how the Third World War will be fought, but I know that the Fourth will be fought with sticks and stones. Today, they are commemorating the first shot fired of World War I. Occupy peace, because if you keep following the madmen and madwomen, World War III is on the doorstep. How much more do you have to add up? This is Gerald Celente, and that's some of today's trends in the news.
Zuma bakula, Jella Luna, Metzmata, Mamma Mimpa Maradona. Pick me a cucurara, Mamma Mimpa Fatuna.
All right, that was Gerald Salente's outro. I kind of liked it, so I let it run a little bit. But yeah, powerful speech. That was titled Gerald Celente, Trends in the News, Eli Weasel, Weasel. But now we're going to go to the Truth Seeker social media questions of the week, brought to you by Pete Wichert this week, and Johnny B. Good will be back next week. He's on vacation. Well-deserved vacation, I guess. Pete Wichert doesn't have time for vacation, so, I'm always on the grind. But the first question here is, can you ask Wayne a question for me, and was there a plot to bring Hitler to the United States? And we answered that question with Wayne. So thank you, Doc Locke, for the question. He was unaware of any documentation, and he alluded that it could have been pointing to Hitler being in Argentina, just in case you missed it. Also, we have, there were reports that the United States had a bombing raid in Iraq, which, yes, that ended up being true. The Pentagon has denied the event, which they did. If so, why did they bomb Iraq, and was it an attack on ISIS? Well, to answer your question, why did they deny the event? Because they feel that they could lie and then just come out when they feel like and say that, no, actually we did. That's that simple, or that stupid to them again, I guess. And why did they bomb ISIS? Well, it turns out they really didn't bomb ISIS that much, and if they did, it'd be a mistake and could lead us into a bigger war, and I agree with most analysts that predict that. But I find it hard to believe that we trained them in Jordan, as Wayne Madsen pointed out. We funded them, and I don't think we would bomb them. So if we did, it was a show bomb to act like we're doing the right thing, because, again, we've lost the moral high ground internationally. So was it an attack on ISIS? They say it was. How effective was it? We don't know. And I'd say very little. So that's that. Question number 3. What do you think of the idea that about having every police officer be required to wear a camera while on duty at all times? Wouldn't this help stop police brutality and the abuse of power? AJ from Nevada. That's a great point. And honest to God, I believe if every police officer was recorded, there still would be problems, because the Kelly Thomas murder was recorded, and the cop goes booyah when he shoots him, aware that he has a camera on him, of course. There's been other cases where they shot dogs, where they've choked out people on camera, and it hasn't stopped them. But putting one on their, say, helmet or cap, then maybe we could at least trial some of these guys. But like I said, most of their actions are caught on camera, and yet there is no repercussion. So would that solve the problem? No. Would it slow it down slightly? Yes. That's my answer to that question. Thank you, AJ from Nevada. And we will also be having William Scott coming on to talk about his son, who is a West Point grad, who was killed in a couple weeks in Nevada. So you should tune in for that interview. That's going to touch on this subject. The next question is, what, if any, implications does Vladimir Putin and his meat ban on the U.S. and other European countries meat have on the United States? Is this just another lame attempt to get back at the U.S. for its latest sanctions? Ashley. Well, Ashley, yeah, you're correct. And believe it or not, Vladimir Putin, basically, it's hurting Russia, it's hurting us, it's hurting all parties, and it is in response to the sanctions. And I think it's just a way to test if his country could be dependent of the EU. But also at the same time, people like Germany and the EU are working with them. So I got a feeling that they did this, but then behind the scenes they're going to come to agreement with Germany and some other countries, possibly in the EU, and go around the United States strictly. And then that would have major implications on the United States economy. So your question is very good, and it's two-parted. And the first part is, I believe, like I said, that it will have implications on all parties. The second part of the question is, yeah, I do think it's another attempt to basically get back at them for sanctions, because in Russia, Putin took these sanctions as an act of war. Now, the fifth and final question is, you think that the missing Malaysian plane has anything to do with the one shot down in Ukraine? If so, would that be on purpose? And what are the odds of two planes from the same airline that had two catastrophes in a matter of months? Well, yeah, the odds of that are like 1 in 10 billion. And it is suspicious because if you read the declassified documents on Operation Northwoods, they talk about getting rid of one plane to use it, basically take everything off and use it in operation, and then basically use another plane. So they're talking about actually disappearing a plane in the documents when this happens. Don't be surprised if that first missing plane shows up somewhere. Like again, CIA source told us 2 countries wouldn't play along. Weeks later, we found out Indonesia, Thailand, just like he said, had radar data, eyewitnesses, low-flying plane. He says it went to Pakistan and it was a troop transport. Now we have this ISIS movement. How'd they get there? Possibly that plane. Then what's in store? It could be used as a projectile to hit Israel or a target in the United States. That's what I know. And what, honest to God, like you said, the 2 catastrophes like that, I just don't see the odds of that. It's crazy. There has to be something behind this missing plane. A 777 doesn't vanish off radar. They had to manually get rid of the transmitter, one of the transmitters. They went in the dark area where there's no radar picking them up. They knew what they were doing. I really believe that source. I believe that plane landed in Pakistan. Mark my words, we'll end up seeing it again. All right, that was the Truth Seeker social media questions of the week. Great as always. Thank you very much, and keep sending them to me at PeteWichert@att.net. That's PeteWichert@att.net. No spaces between my first and last name. All right, now we're going to go into other news and wrap up the show. Another story a lot of people didn't hear about is America's stealth plane chase. America and Russia have a plane chase. Basically, there are reports that numerous, like 30, 40 Russian nuclear bomb-equipped aircraft traveled and passed into NATO airspace, and a chase broke out which ended in Sweden. The Russians are doing drills every single day right on the border of Ukraine to prepare to fight a war with the United States. They're not playing around. They're preparing for a major war. That's for sure. And like I said earlier, Russia considered the economic sanctions placed upon their nation as an act of war. So what I would expect is to see more close calls with all it takes is just one accident, one pilot to sign the fire, and we have World War III. That's how close we are to having World War III. Is one mistake, which we avoided in the Cold War, and I hope we can again, so this war does not go hot. Because nowadays, it would be a nuclear exchange and the whole planet would be wiped out. Now, is that worth it over any conflict, over anything? So right now, in my eyes, both parties are acting irrational, the U.S. and Russia at this point. I'm not sticking up for Putin. I'm not sticking up for Obama. We need to chill out and think of the long-term consequences of these war games, these head games that are being played, and how just one mistake could trigger the Third World War, which could trigger the end of humanity as we know it. All right, other news. Protesters here in the Loop in Chicago protest Obama and the airstrikes in Iraq, saying that it's basically getting us into another war. Obama violated his war powers again by attacking a country without approval from Congress. Again, not shocked. ISIS or ISLS say they will not stop until they get to Washington. Well, that's not surprising since that's where their checks come from. Walmart shopper killed for grabbing BB gun. Yes, Walmart shopper was grabbing a BB gun and got shot and killed by a security guard. I mean, that's crazy. It really is. I feel for that person. All I gotta say is when you go to Walmart, be careful what you grab. Russia and U.S. tension, I think, at this point have reached an all-time high, surpassing even the Cold War. That's in my opinion. Israel and Hamas are still fighting. Israel still massacring thousands of people, bombing hospitals, and Hamas is still shooting rockets into Israel. So the ceasefire did not last. Like we talked about earlier, Russia bans U.S. and EU meat and war games daily and performs drills and masses troops near border. Other news quickly from Infowars.com. Great friends of the program. Obama flashback. I said I'd end the war in Iraq and I ended it. Apparently he doesn't consider bombing a country an act of war. ICE arrests skyrocket in Georgia. Thousands of immigrants from Central America arrested within the past few years. Walmart shopper killed by cops after picking up BB gun. Mainstream media, Americans against wide open borders are anti-immigration. We also have Joe Biggs illustrates how easy Ebola could get through the U.S. border as he walked in to Mexico and back into the U.S. in a wide open area. I mean, literally, the fence shouldn't even be there. You could just go step right in between it. Ridiculous. Shows how big of a health hazard it really is. Monsanto team up to spread GMO propaganda with a group called Condé Nast Team, and they're basically teaming up with a publishing house to recruit well-known celebrities to promote killing us with GMO. We have New York Police Department cops chokehold didn't kill Eric Gardner. Anti-police rhetoric caused his death is what they're saying. So I guess the First Amendment doesn't exist. You could be killed for it now. Airstrikes imminent as ISIS closes in on U.S. consulate. Yeah, okay, sure. Hundreds reported killed after U.S. bombs ISIS position in Iraq. Again, I'd like to see that. The United States' biggest allies are funding ISIS. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, Turkey all back the terror group. Former SEAL turned author predicted vet demonization and border collapse. And fourth grader suspended for bringing Nerf gun to school for show and tell. Oh my God, people. A Nerf gun is now worth getting suspended for. This is how crazy society's become. Everything's racist, offensive, or dangerous. Like, let the kids play. Let the kids play, okay? Please, let the damn kids play. And to wrap up the show, we have the quote of the day. and this is by Thomas Jefferson. Short and simple. The government that rules the least rules the best. A government that rules the least rules the best. Thomas Jefferson. Think about that, and think about how the government today is controlling everything, and how it goes against our founding fathers' principles, which made this country great for so long. And now they want everything. Well, it's time for the government to rule the least and start ruling at least a little bit for the people. And by doing that, I'm talking lessen the executive orders, get people in Congress that are actually going to do their jobs, and let's turn this thing around, because our government is acting the most and doing the least for the people. The exact opposite. So again, Thomas Jefferson, the government that rules the least rules the best. So thank you guys again for tuning in to podcast number 25 of The Truth is Stranger Than Fiction with guest Wayne Madsen. We got a ton of guests coming up this week. This month. I mean, I'd like to quickly say, we're listener sponsored. We're looking for advertising partners. Again, we're looking, and if you'd like to also be a guest on the show, please email me at Pete Wichert. That's P-E-T-E, no spaces, W-I-C-H-E-R-T at att.net. So my name, Pete Wichert, with no spaces, at att.net for booking, for funding, for advertisement, partnerships, all that. And also, just to brief you on the guests, we had Madsen on today. We have Ty Bollinger from Cancer Step Outside the Box. He's recently been on Fox News, coming up next week. We got William B. Scott coming on the 23rd. We have Scott Sentinel coming on, and plenty others in the works. So be sure to stay tuned to each and every podcast every Saturday, and I appreciate everyone out there that's supporting me through this, and I truly believe that we have time to turn this around, but it's up to us. We need to realize it's our generation that's going to make or break this country. And what are you doing in this great time of need? Ask yourselves that question. And if you could do a little more is better than nothing. This is Pete Wichert, and you just tuned in to The Truth is Stranger Than Fiction, podcast 25. Thank you for tuning in, and be sure to tune in to podcast 26 next week, live at 6:30 p.m. Central Time on Slam Internet Radio, Spreaker, and YouTube live events. Thank you very much, and have a good night.
Truth is stranger than fiction.